Hello, Kurt Jackson, retirement income strategist with KJ Financial in Liberty, Missouri. And if you don't know where Liberty's at, it's in the Kansas City metropolitan area. And so I want to apologize. I'm in the studio pretty early here on Monday morning. May look a little tired. I was up late watching the Royals win the World Series. So most of the folks that are in my area are big Royals fans. If you're not, I apologize, but not apologizing too much. We just won the World Series for the first time in 30 years, so I'm pretty excited about that. Also, I hope you'll like my little backdrop today if you're a Royals fan. If you're not, or if you're a Mets fan, I understand if you don't. But that's just fine. I'm happy that the Royals finally did it for the first time in 30 years, and hope if they keep this pattern up, I don't know that I'll make the next one unless I live past life expectancy. So hopefully they'll do it before the next 30 years. All right, so today we're going to kind of change up things a little bit. I'm going to start asking some questions for you, and hopefully you'll find these questions helpful. First, as you can tell by the title, this week we're talking is, do you believe there's going to be another financial catastrophe like there was 2007, 2008? Yeah, just yes or no. All right. So I want to share some things that I think that you should know as you think about all of this. First of all, our government's running deficits. So we bring in about $3.1 trillion in tax revenues. We're spending about $3.8 trillion right now. Now, I know the deficit's gotten smaller, but that's really because during the baby boomers, when they were being born, there was a little lull in, where the number of births went down. And we're seeing that now reaching 62, 63 through 65. So there are fewer people taking Social Security right now, but there's that big wave that's coming after them. So the administration and maybe trying to take credit for the drop in the deficit, but it's not really their doing. In fact, our total debt's gone from $10 trillion when the current administration took over, and they're estimating it's going to be $20 trillion by the time they get out. Now, look, I bash the government. I don't bash parties, because if you want to bash parties, you got to look back at Reagan was a Republican. He's the one that started running deficits. So they've just accelerated and gotten worse and worse as time has gone on. So, and the Congressional Budget Office is predicting that we're going to run about a $1 trillion deficit going forward without anything bad happening. So does that sound to you like an economy that's doing well, that we're strong? Does it sound to you like that? Or does it sound like maybe that there's some risk there that we might see a problem in the economy? All right. How about unemployment? They say unemployment's down around 5%, and we've created new jobs, but they haven't been very high-paying jobs, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But would it be interesting to know that we have fewer people working today than we did 8 years ago, or in 2008, if you want to look at it go from administration to administration, and our population has grown by about 20 million in that time frame. So how can we have fewer people working and have unemployment lower than what it was? Right? Well, that's because once you use up all your unemployment benefits, and they've expanded those out to 99 weeks, if you don't have a job, they quit counting you. So we've got millions and millions and millions of people that don't have jobs right now. So wouldn't that, and I don't know if I'm where to get accurate, 100% accurate information. So a lot of stuff I deal with is just kind of estimates, and I apologize for that. But if I could get the accurate information, I would relay it to you. So that would mean that our unemployment rate's probably 14, 15, 16%. Okay. If the government was telling us that, do you think the economy would be doing? Do you think we would think the economy is doing well? Right. Now, this administration isn't the first one that's used doctored numbers. That they started changing how they calculate the unemployment rate back in the Reagan administration. So now we're creating these jobs. Okay. So let me ask you this, because this comes into this income inequality talk. What was a job at Burger King or a job at McDonald's or Wendy's, was that ever designed to be a breadwinner job? Okay. So even if we could push minimum wage to $15, you realize that's $30,000 a year income. So let me ask you this. Is a $30,000 a year income a breadwinner income? Is that going to give you enough money to buy a house, to buy cars, to raise family, to save for the future? And my argument is no, that it doesn't, and it won't. So we're adding these jobs, they're low-paying jobs. Does that sound like an economy that's doing well, or is it at risk of maybe having something bad happen? Okay. Let's look at incomes. They're still lower. Incomes today, when we adjust them for inflation, they're lower today than they were 20 years ago. So if our incomes aren't keeping up, how are we able to buy more stuff? How are we able to put more money away to plan for retirement? Inflation rates, they seem, the government tells us they're low. Well, the funny thing is they no longer count food, energy, and healthcare when they calculate inflation. So if food costs get too high, are you going to quit eating? No. How about energy costs? If they get too high, are you going to stop heating your house, air conditioning your house, or driving? Right? No. You may cut back, but you're not going to stop. How about healthcare? If healthcare costs get too high, are you going to stop using healthcare when you need it? So when they take those out, aren't they artificially lowering the inflation rate to make you feel better? So if incomes at a lower inflation rate haven't outpaced inflation, what if that inflation rate's 3% or 4%? We need a lot more money, so incomes are dragging even further behind. Does that sound like an economy that's doing well, something that you should plan on going forward to not have any problems? How about derivatives? This really gets under my skin. Derivatives, and I hate to use financial terms, I haven't thought of another cute word for it, but basically these are financial bets. In fact, derivatives are what brought us down in 2007, 2008. We had $600 trillion in derivatives at that time. Now, keep in mind that the global economy produces, I think it's like $72 trillion. So we were 8 times more in derivatives and bets. These are financial bets than the actual economy of the world. So derivatives were $600 trillion. And now, do you remember them talking about how they were going to rein in these derivatives and make sure that this didn't happen again? The Dodd-Frank bill, they went in and fixed derivatives, right? You remember that? So let me ask you a question. If derivatives were if there were $600 trillion in derivatives in 2007, and in 2015 we have $1.2 quadrillion in derivatives, did that reining in the derivatives work? Now, here's what they did. Here's what Congress did. Here's what the Dodd-Frank bill did. They went to Wall Street and asked them how to fix this. So if I'm going to build a chicken coop, do I go ask the fox to design it for me? Because isn't that exactly what the Dodd-Frank bill did? They went to the fox and had him design the chicken coop. So if we're at twice the amount of derivatives, does that sound like an economy that's solid, that there's no risk going forward of anything bad happening? Okay. So let me ask you this. Banks. We had to bail the banks out during that last one. Banks are supposed to be safe money type things, right? Did you realize that the top 5 banks in the United States have a derivative exposure of $220 trillion? Do you know what their assets are? $10 trillion. So what happens if we have another crash? Who's going to bail them out? Taxpayer again, right? If we have that big crash, what happens to your money in the market? Okay. Same thing that happened last time, right? Okay, let's look at housing. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were much maligned, and rightfully so, for doing some crazy loans. They're starting to do some of those again. Do you know the FHA, Federal Housing Administration, has only 1% of the reserves for defaults in their, but they have enough to cover 1%. So what if we have a 2% default rate? FHA is bankrupt. So where does that money come from? Taxpayers. If that happens, do you think housing prices are going to continue to rise? Do you think they're going to drop? What's that going to do to the economy? Deflation. We don't really talked about deflation. There's a fear of that. If you look at Japan has been in a deflationary economy for 25 years. Their stock market hit a peak in a little over 25 years ago of about 40,000. It's trading about 18,000. So is there that possibility that if we have another market correction or crisis or crash, could we be in a situation like that? If that happens, how are you going to build up enough retirement money to live on? How about this? Since 1900, we've averaged a 47% drop in the market every 11 years. So think about that. All right, life expectancy for a 65-year-old male today is 86.6. It's 88.8 for a 65-year-old female. If you're a married couple, 65, you have a 50% chance one of you is going to live to 95. So we're talking about living 20, 25, 30 years or more in retirement. Life expectancy means half will live past that. Okay? So depending on what age you are, how many more of these 47% corrections could be in your future. Now, I don't know that they're going to happen. History doesn't predict the future. It's the only thing we have to go on. But it seems like a fairly consistent pattern that we're losing money, that much money every 11 years. Can you afford to have that happen? So do you think there will be another financial catastrophe like we saw in 2007, 2008? Could it be worse? If derivative exposures has doubled, could it be worse, right? So do you want what happened to you last time to happen again? Let me ask you something, and what are you going to do to make sure that it doesn't happen again? Now, before you answer that, and this is really important, and you're probably not going to like what I'm going to ask you. Why do you keep using the same strategies over and over again, expecting them to work when you know that they've failed in the past? Right, now, all right, so what are you going to do? Look, you and I both know that just not losing money isn't good enough. So what if there was a way you could actually set yourself up where you could take advantage of these crises, catastrophes, whatever you want to call them, that you could actually sit in your basement and kind of rub your hands together excitedly waiting for bad news, because you knew you not only wouldn't get hurt by that bad news, but that there were going to be some opportunities for you to take advantage of coming after that. If there was no cost or obligation, would it be worth spending 30 to 45 minutes to have a conversation to talk about that potential? Now, look, all I'm going to do during that time frame is ask you about 7 to 10 more questions. And when I'm done asking you those questions, I'm telling you, you're going to have a very good understanding of how you need to proceed to make sure that, first of all, you don't lose any money, and second of all, that you'll be in a position that you can take advantage of whatever comes forward. Because think about this. There's really no such thing as good news and bad news. There's just news. But it's how you've planned for it. So if you've planned for that news, that catastrophic news, that keeps you from losing money, and it positions you to take advantage of that, wouldn't that bad news then be good news? And then if you're in a position to take advantage of good news, wouldn't the good news always give you more good news, be good news for you? So think about that. It's a different, I know it's a different frame of mind, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist out there. So if you want to have that conversation, my contact information will be up here on the screen in just a little bit. You can call my direct line. You can call or you can email me. You know, one of the things, too, that we are able to do to make it easier for people is we can kind of do an online meeting where we kind of over the phone and with the computer, so we can share some things back and forth. That makes it easier to do. So basically, my 5-star guarantee is this. Look, we're not going to talk any more than 30 minutes unless you want to. There's nothing for sale during this conversation, so leave your money at home. No, leave your checkbook at home, leave everything at home. And then the last thing is that when you walk away from our conversation after we're done, you're going to know more about your situation, about money, and about what you should be doing going forward. If you want us to help you with that, we'd be happy to take a look at that. If you want to do it on your own, go for it. If you want to use your current financial situation, your current financial professional, we understand that. All right. The question I would ask then is, if they knew about all this, why are you listening to this? Why would you be talking to me if they've already handled all that? So think about that. One of the things, too, that we've put together is we've got a little 10-question deal that it's basically to help you make sure you've crash-proofed your retirement plan. It's something that we're willing to give to you for free. If you like that, just let me know. Ask, hey, Kurt, send me that 10-question quiz on crash-proofing making sure my retirement is crash-proofed. So. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you found value in this, please share it with your friends, family, coworkers, anybody that you really care about that you think might find value in this, because that's what we're here to do, to try to ask you questions to maybe disturb your reality and take a good look to make sure that what you've got going on is actually going to give you what you think it's going to give you. Because I'm afraid that too many of us, that's not going to happen. It's not going to give us what we think it's going to, because we've been it's been built on false promises, okay, and acting like we have more control over the situation when we don't have the control over the situation when you follow traditional thinking. So if you want more control, give me a shout. Let's talk about it and see if what we are talking about makes sense for you. If it does, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. At least you'll know, right? So thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you next week. Go Royals.